truth values. So here I have four conditional statements, and we're going to evaluate each conditional as either true or false. So conditional statements could be true or false. And what we're going to do is we have to look at the hypothesis and conclusion for each conditional statement. So here are the hypothesis for this one. I'm going to underline each hypothesis for each conditional statement, and then I'm going to underline each conclusion for the conditional statements. And now I'm going to evaluate them as either true or false. So here's my hypothesis. If today is Monday, so let me consider this case when it's true. So let's say today is Monday. Okay, today's Monday. I'm considering the case when that's true. Then tomorrow is Tuesday. Well, if it's Monday today, is it true that tomorrow is Tuesday? Yes, that's also true. So if you have a conditional statement where the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is true, then the truth value for that would be true. That's our truth value for this conditional. Now in the second conditional it says if today is Monday, then tomorrow is Sunday. So here, right, I consider the case when this is true. So today is Monday, then tomorrow is Sunday. So right, today is Monday, tomorrow's not Sunday, tomorrow's supposed to be Tuesday. So here my conclusion is false. So if you have a conditional where the hypothesis is true, the conclusion is false, then your conditional is false. Alright, so we have true and false. Now, for these two, this is maybe where things might look a little bit more like you're going to probably do one of these things. Right, you're going to get a little question like, it's kind of confusing. But, just bear with me. So here, if dogs have 3 heads, then they can fly. Dogs do not have 3 heads, right? So I cannot consider this case when it is true, right? In these previous cases, right, we can consider when it's Monday. Here, we cannot consider this. So this hypothesis is false. I cannot consider a situation when dogs have 3 heads, right? That's not going to be true, right? That's just simply false. And if I look at here, then they can fly, right? The dogs can fly. That's also false. And in this case, you may say the conditional will have a true value of of false, but it's actually true. So when I said you're going to scratch your head, you're probably doing that now, like what? But the way I think about it to make things a little bit easier is this is never going to contradict itself, right? Like for instance, in the first one, there's no contradiction, right? Because if it's Monday, then tomorrow is Tuesday. There's no contradiction. Here, there is a contradiction, right? If it's Monday, then tomorrow is Sunday is incorrect. This is contradicting each other. Now in this case, there is no contradiction because this hypothesis will never be true. Since this will never be true, then my conclusion that they can fly doesn't matter, because since my hypothesis is not true, then the fact that they can't fly will not contradict this, because this is never going to be true. And one way I like to think about it is like when you're in computer programming, think of like when you read this, like you're a computer and you're reading this statement. If you never have to consider the situation, then you never have to worry about the conclusion. So think about it like as a computer, it will basically scan it, and once it gets to this, that situation never occurs, so it'll just skip that conditional. And when you're skipping it, then that's like having a truth value of true, because this will never mess up with the computer's program, because it'll never occur. This situation will never occur. So since no contradiction can occur, it'll always be true. Alright? So one way I like to think about it is like the true means that no contradiction will occur. Right? In the first one, nothing occurred, there's a contradiction, but in the second one, there is a contradiction. Right? It's like an error. If it's Monday, then tomorrow's Sunday, that's like an error. Think about it that way. That's why this is false. Here, there's no error because, the fact that dogs will never have 3 heads, then I don't have to worry about the fact that they can fly, because this will never be true. And then the last one, If sharks walk on land, then 1 plus 1 is 2. So if sharks walk on land, will that ever be true? Can I consider that when it's true? No, right? Sharks cannot walk on land. The hypothesis is false. And then my conclusion, then 1 plus 1 is 2. Well, that in this case is actually true. Okay, so I have a false hypothesis, true conclusion, and the truth value here is actually true as well. So why is it true? Well, because there is no contradiction, right? So think of like it in terms of a computer program, right? The computer, when a computer does it, scans through, the code that is written, and in this case, when a computer would get to this condition, this conditional statement, if sharks walk on land, well, the computer knows this will never happen, so it's never going to get to this situation where it has to look at the conclusion. And since it will not look at the conclusion, there's no contradiction that will occur. And since there's no contradiction, then my overall value, is going to be a true truth value. So when you get to these types of situations, these conditional statements, right, it can get confusing, but I try to think of it in terms of a computer program where what the computer does is it always looks at the hypothesis, and if that happens to be true, then it looks at the conclusion. Right? So if you have a true hypothesis and the conclusion came out to be true, then the truth value is true because the event will occur. Here it's not true, it's a false conditional because we looked at the hypothesis when it was true, so we have to look at the conclusion. But since the conclusion is false, then we have a false truth value. And then in these last two cases, right, since the hypothesis is false, then I'm not even gonna look at the conclusion. Same reasoning for this one. Since my hypothesis is false, I'm not gonna bother to look at the conclusion. And since I don't have to look at the conclusion in either case, no contradiction will occur. Therefore, the truth values will be true.